I am Sophia Reynolds, 32 years old, and I still remember the exact moment my family's faces changed from mockery to shock. Standing there in my soaked designer dress, water dripping from my hair after my own father had pushed me into the fountain at my sister's wedding. I smiled not because I was happy, but because I knew what was coming. They had no idea who I really was, or who I had married. The whispers, the laughs, the pointed fingers, all about to be silenced forever. Before I continue this story, if you've ever been the family scapegoat, please like and subscribe, because what happened next changed my life forever. Growing up in the affluent Reynolds family of Boston meant maintaining appearances at all costs. Our 5-bedroom colonial house in Beacon Hill projected success to the outside world, but behind those perfectly painted doors lay a different reality. From my earliest memories, I was always compared unfavorably to my sister Jessica. She was 2 years younger, but somehow always the star. "Why can't you be more like your sister?" became the soundtrack of my childhood, played on repeat by my parents William and Eleanor Reynolds. My father, a prominent corporate attorney, valued image above all else. My mother, a former beauty queen turned socialite, never missed an opportunity to remind me that I was inadequate. When I brought home straight A's, Jessica had straight A+s and extracurricular achievements. When I won second place in a science competition, my accomplishment was overshadowed by Jessica's dance recital that same weekend. The pattern was relentless and deliberate. "Sophia, stand up straight. No one will ever take you seriously with that posture." My mother would snap at family gatherings when I was just 12. "Jessica has natural grace." She would continue placing her hand proudly on my sister's shoulder. "You have to work harder at these things." During my 16th birthday dinner, my father raised his glass for a toast. I remember the anticipation building, thinking, maybe this once I would be celebrated. Instead, he announced Jessica's acceptance into an elite summer program at Yale. My birthday cake remained in the kitchen, forgotten. The college years brought no relief. While I worked diligently at Boston University, maintaining a 4.0 GPA while working part-time, my parents rarely attended my events. But they traveled 3 states over to see every one of Jessica's performances at Juilliard. At my college graduation, my mother's first comment was about my sensible career choice in criminal justice. "At least you're being realistic about your prospects," she said with a tight smile. Meanwhile, Jessica's arts degree was praised as following her passion. These 1,000 paper cuts continued into adulthood. Every family holiday became an exercise in endurance. Every accomplishment minimized, every flaw magnified. It was during my second year at the FBI Academy in Quantico that I made the decision to create emotional distance. I stopped sharing details about my life. I declined holiday invitations when possible. I built walls higher than our family home. The irony was that my career was flourishing spectacularly. I had found my calling in counterintelligence, rapidly ascending through the ranks with a combination of analytical brilliance and unflinching determination. By age 29, I was leading specialized operations that my family knew nothing about. They thought I was some mid-level bureaucrat pushing papers in a government office. The truth was far more interesting, but I had long stopped trying to impress them. The manila envelope arrived on a Tuesday, cream-colored and heavy with expectation. Jessica's wedding invitation, ornate calligraphy announcing her upcoming marriage to Daniel Mitchell, heir to a banking fortune. The event promised to be exactly the kind of excessive display my parents lived for. I stood in my kitchen holding the invitation, feeling the familiar tightness in my chest that accompanied all Reynolds family communications. 6 months to prepare myself for another round of subtle digs and disappointed looks. 6 months to decide if I would even attend. My phone buzzed on the counter. "Marcus, the Tokyo contract is almost finalized." His deep voice came through, no preamble needed. "Board meeting on Friday, then I fly out Sunday for the signing." Marcus Chen wasn't just any tech entrepreneur. He had built Chen Security Systems from his college dorm room into a global cybersecurity powerhouse worth billions. His systems protected government agencies and corporations alike from emerging threats. He was also my husband of nearly 3 years. "How's your day going?" he asked, the background noise suggesting he was on the move. I glanced at the invitation in my hand. "Jessica's getting married, 6 months from now." A pause. "Are you thinking of going?" I sighed, running my fingers over the embossed lettering. Shouldn't I, for appearances? "Sophia," his tone softened. "You don't owe them appearances. Not after everything." Our marriage remained private by mutual agreement. Initially, it was about security, both his position as CEO of a major security firm and my role at the FBI made us cautious about our personal lives. But as time passed, I realized I was protecting something else too, the precious sphere of happiness we'd created together untainted by my family's toxicity. "I know," I said, tucking the invitation into a drawer. "I'll think about it." That evening, as we sat on the terrace of our penthouse overlooking the Potomac, I brought it up again. "If I go to this wedding, it will be torture," I said, swirling the wine in my glass. "They'll ask why I'm still single, make comments about my government job, and generally make me feel like I'm 16 again." Marcus watched me carefully. "And if you don't go, it confirms everything they already think about me, that I'm bitter, antisocial, jealous of Jessica's happiness." "What if I went with you?" he suggested. "End the charade." I laughed without humor. "Can you imagine, sorry I never mentioned it, but I married a billionaire tech CEO 3 years ago. Pass the salt. He smiled, but his eyes remained serious. "Would it be so bad to finally show them who you really are?" I looked out at the city lights reflecting on the water. It's not about impressing them with who I married Marcus. It's about the fact that they've never seen me. The real me. I could be the director of the FBI and they'd still find a way to make it sound like I'm underachieving. "I know," he said softly, taking my hand. "I just hate seeing you diminish yourself around them." 2 days later, a call came from Assistant Director Watkins. A significant counterintelligence threat had emerged. A suspected network of foreign operatives using corporate cover in Boston. Boston. As I reviewed the case files in my secure office, I felt a strange convergence of my worlds. The operation would require months of careful surveillance and coordination, potentially coinciding with Jessica's wedding. That evening, I made my decision. I would attend the wedding, alone. Marcus would be in Tokyo finalizing a major government security contract. It was better this way. I would maintain my cover as the underachieving daughter while secretly managing one of the most sensitive counterintelligence operations of my career. "I'll try to make it back for the reception," Marcus promised when I told him, even if it's just for the end. "No need," I assured him. "This is too important for Chen security. I'll be fine for one afternoon." What I didn't tell him was that part of me was relieved. Going alone meant maintaining the walls I'd built. It meant not having to navigate the complexity of introducing my husband to people who had never bothered to know me. As the months passed, the Boston operation intensified. We identified 3 key suspects working within financial institutions, including, ironically, the very banking conglomerate owned by my soon-to-be brother-in-law's family. The coincidence wasn't lost on me, though I kept this strictly compartmentalized from my personal connection. A week before the wedding, Marcus noticed me staring at the formal dress I'd selected. An elegant emerald green silk that cost more than most people's monthly rent. "You're still planning to go alone?" he asked, leaning against the doorframe of our walk-in closet. "It's easier," I said, though the word felt wrong as soon as it left my mouth. Nothing about my relationship with my family had ever been easy. Marcus crossed to me, his hands gentle on my shoulders. "I'm worried about you. These people have a way of getting under your skin even when you think you're prepared." I smiled, touching his face. "I've faced down foreign intelligence agents. I think I can handle my mother's passive-aggressive comments about my hair." But later that night, as Marcus slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling, rehearsing responses to imagined slights, preparing my emotional armor. The truth was, I'd rather face a room of hostile operatives than spend an afternoon with my family. At least with enemies, I knew where I stood. 3 days before the wedding, a new development in the case intelligence suggested one of our suspects would be attending a high-profile social event that weekend. The same weekend as Jessica's wedding. The coincidence set off alarm bells, but our team couldn't confirm if the event in question was indeed the Mitchell-Reynolds wedding. "We'll have a surveillance team in place," my deputy Jason Wilson assured me. "If our suspect shows up, we'll know." "I want continuous updates," I instructed. "And I want Olivia on standby with a response team." I didn't explain why I would personally be at the wedding. As far as my team knew, I was simply being thorough, covering all bases. The personal connection remained my secret. The night before I left for Boston, Marcus held me close, his voice low against my ear. "I've sent a security team ahead to the Fairmont. They'll maintain distance, but they'll be there if you need them." I pulled back, surprised. "You did what just a precaution," he said. "After what you've told me about your father's temper, your mother's manipulations. I don't trust them, Sophia." I wanted to protest to say he was overreacting, but something in me was grateful for the invisible safety net. "They're just going to ignore me like they always do," I said, but without conviction. "And if they don't," his eyes were serious, "if something happens, my team has instructions to intervene." I nodded, touched by his concern, even as I hoped it was unnecessary. "Thank you." As I packed my overnight bag, I added something extra, a simple black sheath dress and flats, a backup plan, a professional habit. Always have contingencies. Little did I know how desperately I would need it. The drive from Washington, D.C. to Boston gave me too much time to think. 5 hours of memories surfacing like debris in disturbed water. Birthdays, forgotten achievements, dismissed countless moments when I'd felt invisible in my own home. By the time I pulled my sleek black Audi into the valet stand at the Fairmont Copley Plaza, my stomach was coiled tight with tension. I checked my reflection one last time. Sophisticated emerald dress, understated diamond studs, a gift from Marcus Hare in a classic updo. I looked successful, confident, untouchable. If only I felt that way inside. The Fairmont's grand ballroom had been transformed into a floral wonderland for Jessica's special day. White orchids and roses cascaded from crystal chandeliers, and the afternoon light filtered through gossamer draperies. It was exactly the type of over-the-top display my parents had always dreamed of. I handed my invitation to the usher, who checked his list with a slight frown. "Miss Reynolds, we have you seated at table 19. Not the family table, of course. I nodded politely, already understanding what that meant. My cousin Rebecca spotted me first, her eyes widening slightly before her face arranged itself into a practiced smile. "Sophia, what a surprise, we weren't sure you'd make it." Her gaze slid pointedly to my empty side. "And you came alone." "I did," I replied, simply, not offering explanations. "How brave," she said with manufactured sympathy. "After what happened with that professor you were dating, what was his name? Aunt Eleanor said it was just devastating when he left you for his teaching assistant." A complete fabrication. I had never dated a professor, let alone been left by one. But this was the Reynolds family specialty, creating narratives that positioned me as the perpetual failure. "Your memory must be confusing me with someone else," I said calmly. More relatives approached each interaction, following the same pattern. Aunt Vivian commented on my practical haircut and how it was sensible for a woman in my position to give up on more stylish options. Uncle Harold asked loudly if I was still pushing papers for the government, and whether I had considered a career change, since those jobs never pay enough to attract a decent husband. My cousin Tiffany, Jessica's maid of honor, approached with air kisses that deliberately missed my cheeks. "Sophia, God, it's been ages, love the dress. Is it from that discount retailer? You always were so good at finding deals." She didn't wait for an answer before continuing. "Jessica was just saying she wasn't sure you'd come. You know, since you missed the bridal shower and the bachelorette weekend and the rehearsal dinner." Each event had conflicted with critical operations I couldn't disclose. I had sent generous gifts to each with heartfelt notes. "Work commitments," I said simply. "Right, your mysterious government job." She made air quotes around the word mysterious. "Daniel's cousin works for the State Department. He says those administrative roles can be so demanding." I just smiled, letting her believe I was a clerical worker. The truth would have shocked her into silence, but that revelation wasn't mine to share. Not yet. My mother appeared resplendent in a pale blue designer gown that probably cost more than a month of my substantial salary. "Sophia, you made it." Her tone suggested I'd completed an arduous journey rather than a simple drive across state lines. "Your sister was concerned you wouldn't come. Again." "I wouldn't miss Jessica's wedding," I said. Her eyes performed a rapid inventory of my appearance, looking for flaws to highlight. Finding none obvious enough, she settled for, "That color washes you out. You should have consulted me before purchasing something so bold." Before I could respond, a commotion at the entrance signaled the arrival of the bridal party. Jessica made her entrance to the reception, now officially Mrs. Mitchell, on the arm of her banker husband. She was undeniably stunning in a custom Vera Wang gown with a cathedral train that required 2 attendants to manage. My father beamed with pride, looking at Jessica as if she were the sun and moon combined. I couldn't remember him ever looking at me that way. The maitre d' directed me to table 19, positioned so far from the main family table that I nearly needed binoculars to see it. I was seated with distant cousins twice removed, my mother's former college roommate, and several elderly relatives who couldn't quite place who I was. "Are you one of the Mitchell girls?" asked a hard-of-hearing great-aunt squinting at me through thick glasses. No, I'm William and Eleanor's daughter, I explained. Jessica's sister. Oh, her face registered surprise. I didn't know there was another daughter. That stung more than it should have after all these years. Dinner proceeded with elaborate courses and flowing champagne. From my distant vantage point, I watched my family holding court at the center table, laughing and celebrating without a glance in my direction. The traditional family photos had been taken earlier without me. I'd arrived precisely on time as indicated on the invitation, only to be told by the photographer that they'd moved the schedule up and had already finished. During the maid of honor speech, Tiffany spoke movingly about growing up with Jessica, who was like the sister I never had, pointedly ignoring my existence entirely. The best man joked about Daniel finally joining the Reynolds family dynasty and how he was trading up by marrying the Reynolds' golden child. I maintained my composure through it all, sipping water rather than wine to stay clear-headed. I needed my wits about me. Marcus had texted an hour ago, landing soon, traffic from airport heavy, ETA 45 minutes. When the dancing began, I attempted to join a circle of cousins, only to have them subtly close ranks, leaving me on the outside. I retreated to a quiet corner, checking my watch. Marcus would be here soon. Just a little longer. My phone vibrated with a message from Jason. Suspect confirmed at Fairmont. Surveillance in position. So our intelligence had been correct. One of our targets was here at my sister's wedding. I texted back. Maintain distance. Observe only. We'll check in personally. As I slipped my phone back into my clutch, my mother approached, champagne flute in hand. You could at least try to look like you're enjoying yourself, she hissed. Your perpetual sulking is becoming a topic of conversation. I'm not sulking, Mother. I'm simply observing. Well, observe with a smile. The Mitchells are important people, and your sister has made an exceptional match. Don't embarrass us. As if I were the embarrassment in this scenario. The least you could have done was bring a date, she continued. Everyone is asking why you're here alone. Again. I didn't bother explaining that my husband was worth more than the entire Mitchell family fortune combined. That revelation would come soon enough. I need to use the restroom, I said, stepping away from her. I wasn't lying. I did need a moment away from the festivities. But I also needed to check in with my surveillance team. In the relative privacy of a hallway alcove, I made a secure call to Jason. What's our suspect doing? I asked quietly. Mingling normally. Appears to be a legitimate guest connected to the groom's family through business. No unusual contacts or movements yet. Keep watching. I want to know the second anything changes. I ended the call and took a deep breath, steadying myself for the return to the reception. As I turned, I nearly collided with Jessica. There you are, she said, her voice carrying the slight edge it always had when addressing me. Mother said you were hiding. Not hiding, working. She rolled her eyes. Of course you are. Always so serious even at a wedding. She smoothed her already perfect dress. So, no date again. Congratulations on your marriage, Jessica, I said, ignoring her question. Daniel seems like a good man. He is. Something genuine flashed in her eyes before the familiar competitiveness returned. His family has 3 homes, you know. The summer house in Nantucket is being featured in Architectural Digest next month. How nice. She studied me, seeming disappointed by my lack of reaction. You know, Sophia, it wouldn't kill you to make an effort sometimes. With your appearance, with dating, with family functions. Mom and Dad talk about it all the time, how you've just given up. The irony of her statement might have made me laugh if it weren't so painful. I hadn't given up. I'd simply stopped performing for an audience that never appreciated the show. I'm happy with my life, Jessica, I said quietly. Even if it doesn't look like what you or they think it should. She seemed taken aback by my calm response. For a moment I thought I glimpsed something like doubt in her expression. Then her bridesmaid called her name, and the mask of perfect bride slipped back into place. Try not to disappear again, she said, already turning away. People are starting to talk. Let them talk, I thought, watching her glide back to her adoring crowd. In a few hours they'd have something entirely new to discuss. The reception was in full swing when my father tapped his crystal glass for attention. The crowd quieted as he took center stage beside the elaborate ice sculpture of intertwined swans. Today, he began, his voice carrying the practiced projection of a seasoned attorney, is the proudest day of my life. My beautiful Jessica has made a match that exceeds even a father's highest hopes. A smattering of appreciative laughter followed. Daniel, he continued, turning to my new brother-in-law, you're gaining not just a wife, but entrance into a family built on excellence and achievement. He raised his glass higher. To Jessica, who has never disappointed us. From her first steps to her graduation from Juilliard with highest honors to her charitable foundation work, she has been nothing but a source of pride. My chest tightened, not because I expected to be mentioned, I knew better, but because of the implicit comparison. Jessica had never disappointed them. The unspoken conclusion was obvious. As he continued extolling Jessica's virtues, I quietly slipped away toward the terrace doors. I needed airspace a moment to regroup before Marcus arrived. The evening sun was setting over the hotel's famous courtyard fountain, casting golden light across the rippling water. I had nearly reached the sanctuary of the terrace when my father's voice boomed from behind me. "Leaving so soon, Sophia?" I turned slowly. He stood 10 feet away, microphone still in hand, the entire reception looking in our direction. My mother and Jessica flanked him, identical expressions of disapproval on their perfect faces. "Just getting some air," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "Running away, more like it," he said, and the microphone amplified his words to the entire room. Classic Sophia disappearing when family obligations become inconvenient. A flush of heat crawled up my neck. "That's not true." "Isn't it?" His voice had taken on the cross-examination tone I remembered from childhood. "You've missed half the wedding events. You arrived alone without even the courtesy of bringing a +1. The room had fallen completely silent. "I'm sorry if my attendance alone offended you," I said carefully. "She couldn't even find a date," my father announced to the room, and scattered nervous laughter followed. 32 years old and not a prospect in sight. Meanwhile, your sister has secured one of Boston's most eligible bachelors. The laughter grew louder, encouraged by his showmanship. "Dad," I said quietly, "this isn't the time or place." "It's exactly the time and place," he retorted, advancing toward me. "This is a celebration of success, a family achievement, something you would know nothing about." Each word was a calculated barb designed to penetrate years of carefully constructed armor. I glanced at my mother and sister, looking for any sign of intervention. They simply watched. My mother with a tight smile, Jessica with barely concealed satisfaction. "You think we don't know why you're really alone," my father continued. "Why you hide behind that mysterious government job. You've always been jealous of your sister's accomplishments. Always the disappointment. Always the failure." He was inches from me now, the microphone lowered, but his voice still carrying in the hushed room. Decades of resentment had transformed his face into something almost unrecognizable. "Dad, please stop," I whispered, aware of hundreds of eyes on us. "Stop what?" "Telling the truth. The truth that you've never measured up, that you're an embarrassment to the Reynolds name." His voice rose with each question. Something inside me snapped, not toward anger, but toward a strange, calm clarity. "You have no idea who I am," I said quietly. "I know exactly who you are," he snarled. And then it happened. His hands connected with my shoulders, a forceful shove that caught me completely off guard. I stumbled backward, arms windmilling, but there was nothing to grab onto. For a suspended moment, I felt weightlessness. Then the shocking cold as I plunged backward into the courtyard fountain. Water engulfed me. My carefully styled hair collapsed. My silk dress billowed, then clung, and my makeup surely ran in rivulets down my face. The physical shock was nothing compared to the realization that my own father had just publicly humiliated me at my sister's wedding. The crowd's reaction came in waves, first shocked gasps, then uncertain titters, finally erupting into full-throated laughter and even scattered applause. Someone wolf whistled. Another voice called out, "Wet t-shirt contest after the garter toss." More laughter, more applause. I pushed myself up, water streaming from my ruined dress. My heels slipped on the fountain's slick bottom as I found my footing. Through dripping strands of hair, I saw my father's triumphant expression, my mother's hand covering a smile, my sister's undisguised glee. The photographer snapped picture after picture, capturing my humiliation for posterity. This would be in the wedding album passed around at future family gatherings. Another chapter in the Sophia the Failure narrative. But something unexpected happened in that fountain. As the cold water shocked my system, so too did a realization. I was done. Done seeking approval. Done accepting mistreatment. done hiding who I really was. I stood fully upright in the fountain water cascading from my designer dress. I pushed back my soaked hair and looked directly at my father. "Remember this moment," I said, my voice carrying across the suddenly quiet courtyard. Not shouting, not emotional, just clear and precise. The smile froze on my father's face. Something in my tone must have registered because uncertainty flickered in his eyes. "Remember exactly how you treated me," I continued, stepping carefully toward the fountain's edge. "Remember the choices you made. Remember what you did to your daughter, because I promise you I will." I climbed out of the fountain with as much dignity as my soaked condition allowed. A stunned silence had replaced the laughter. Even my father seemed momentarily at a loss for words. The memory of a similar public humiliation flashed through my mind. High school graduation, when my father had interrupted my valedictorian speech to loudly comment that memorization had always been Sophia's only talent. The audience had laughed then, too. I had shrunk into myself, becoming smaller. Not this time. I walked through the crowd, water dripping with each step, creating a trail across the expensive carpet. No one stopped me as I made my way to the ladies' room. No one offered help. No one spoke. And strangely, I was okay with that. For the first time in my life, I didn't need anything from these people. The ladies' room of the Fairmont was blessedly empty when I pushed through the door. I caught sight of myself in the gold-framed mirror, mascara streaked down my cheeks, hair plastered to my skull, the emerald dress now a darker forest green saturated with water. And yet I didn't feel defeated. I felt oddly liberated. My phone had been in my clutch, which thankfully I'd left at table 19 before the fountain incident. I retrieved it from a concerned-looking elderly cousin who'd guarded it for me, then returned to the bathroom to text Marcus. "How close are you?" His response came immediately, 20 minutes out. "Traffic clearing, everything okay?" I hesitated before typing. Dad pushed me into the fountain in front of everyone. 3 dots appeared instantly, disappeared, reappeared. Finally, "I'm coming. 10 minutes, security team already at perimeter." I hadn't known he'd sent a security team ahead. That was Marcus, always thinking 10 steps ahead, always protecting what mattered to him. And somehow, incredibly, I mattered to him. The bathroom door swung open and a young woman entered. One of Daniel's cousins, I thought. She stopped short when she saw me. "Oh, are you okay?" she asked, genuine concern in her voice. "I'm fine," I replied, straightening my spine. "Just a little wet," she hovered uncertainly. "Everyone's talking about what happened. It was really awful of your dad." Her unexpected kindness nearly broke my composure. "Thank you for saying that." "I have a spare dress in my car," she offered. "It might be a little big, but—" "That's incredibly kind, but I have a change of clothes in my car. A professional habit. Always have backup options." I smiled slightly. "Could you walk with me to the valet? I'd rather not wade through the crowd alone." "Of course," she said. "I'm Rachel, by the way. Daniel's step-cousin from his mom's second marriage. Basically the Mitchell family outlier." "Sophia," I replied, offering my dripping hand. "Reynolds' family scapegoat. Pleasure to meet you." She laughed, and somehow that small moment of connection steadied me. Rachel ran interference as we made our way through a side exit to the valet stand. I retrieved my backup outfit from the Audi's trunk, a simple black sheath dress and flats I kept for emergencies. 10 minutes in a nearby restroom, and I'd managed to transform myself from drowned rat to reasonably presentable professional. As I applied fresh makeup, I thought about my life, my real life, not the distorted version my family perceived. I had graduated top of my class at Quantico. I had led operations that saved American lives. I had earned the respect of hardened field agents and Washington officials alike. I had married a brilliant, kind man who valued me exactly as I was. None of that validation had come from the people currently celebrating in the ballroom. And maybe that was the point. Maybe true worth is only found outside the funhouse mirrors of toxic family dynamics. I checked my watch. Marcus would arrive any minute. For the first time, I was ready to stop hiding our relationship. Not because I needed my family to be impressed that ship had sailed into the fountain with me, but because I was tired of diminishing myself to make them comfortable. My phone vibrated with a text from Marcus, in position. I took a deep breath, smoothed my replacement dress, and walked back toward the reception with my head high and shoulders back. Rachel had returned to her table, but she gave me an encouraging thumbs up as I passed. The festivities had resumed in my absence. The dance floor was crowded, the bar busy, the cake waiting to be cut. No one noticed me immediately, which allowed me to position myself strategically near the main entrance. I spotted my mother first, holding court with several of her socialite friends, gesturing animatedly. As I drew closer, her words became clear. Always been difficult. We've tried everything with her. Absolutely everything. The best schools, the best therapists. Such a shame, agreed one of her friends, especially with Jessica being so successful. Same parents, same opportunities. Genetics are mysterious. William and I have accepted that Sophia will never... She trailed off as she noticed me standing there, clearly not still hiding in the bathroom as she'd assumed. Sophia, she recovered quickly. You look dry. Yes, Mother. I always keep a spare outfit handy, one of many professional habits. Her friends murmured uncomfortable greetings before finding urgent reasons to refresh their drinks. Was humiliating me part of the wedding itinerary, or did Dad improvise that part? I asked quietly. Don't be dramatic, she hissed. You were trying to slink away as usual. Your father simply lost patience with your antisocial behavior. Pushing your adult daughter into a fountain is not a normal response to perceived antisocial behavior. Perhaps if you had brought a date, made any effort at all to participate in your sister's happiness, instead of making everything about your mysterious job and your perpetually busy schedule, things would have gone differently. I studied my mother's face, searching for any sign of the protective instinct that should have been there. There was nothing but annoyance that I had disrupted her narrative. You know what's interesting, Mother? I've never once made anything about me. In fact, I've spent my entire life trying to take up as little space as possible in this family, and it still wasn't enough. A commotion at the entrance caught everyone's attention. The distinct sound of multiple car doors closing in rapid succession. The appearance of two men in impeccable suits conducting a subtle security sweep. My mother frowned. What's happening? If the Mitchells arranged additional security without consulting us, I checked my watch. Right on time, I murmured. The sleek black Maybach had arrived, followed by two equally impressive security vehicles. The wedding guests had noticed now. Conversations paused as attention shifted toward the entrance. Even the music seemed to quiet. My heart quickened despite my outward calm. After 3 years of marriage, Marcus still had that effect on me. And in approximately 60 seconds, my family would finally meet my husband. The double doors to the ballroom swung open with authority. 2 security personnel entered first. I recognized Jason and our team member Olivia, their alert eyes scanning the room with professional efficiency. They wore impeccable suits that couldn't quite disguise their military bearing. Whispers rippled through the reception. The father of the bride approached the security men with an affronted expression. Excuse me, my father began, puffing up his chest. This is a private event. If you're looking for the corporate conference, it's in the West Wing. Jason simply looked through him as if he were transparent. Olivia touched her earpiece and spoke quietly. Perimeter secure. Proceeding. And then Marcus walked in. My husband had always had a commanding presence, but today he seemed to fill the entire doorway. 6'2" with shoulders broadened by years of swimming, he wore a custom Tom Ford suit that subtly screamed wealth and power. His dark hair was slightly windblown. He'd probably come straight from the helicopter pad on the roof, and his jawline could have cut glass, but it was his eyes that always undid me. Intensely dark and laser-focused, they scanned the room in seconds before landing directly on me. The moment they did, his serious expression softened into the private smile reserved only for me. He moved through the crowd with the confidence of someone who never questioned his right to be anywhere. People instinctively stepped aside, creating a path directly to where I stood. I was vaguely aware of my mother beside me, her body going rigid as she realized this imposing man was heading straight for us. Behind him, 4 more security personnel had entered, positioning themselves strategically around the perimeter of the ballroom. Sophia, Marcus said when he reached me, his voice a warm baritone that carried in the now hushed room. He took my hands in his thumbs brushing over my knuckles in our private gesture of connection. Sorry I'm late. You're right on time, I replied, feeling truly steady for the first time that day. He leaned down and kissed me, not a showy display, but a genuine greeting between partners. His hand moved protectively to the small of my back as he turned to face my mother. Mrs. Reynolds, he said with perfect politeness that somehow still conveyed zero warmth. I'm Marcus Chen, Sophia's husband. My mother's face went through a spectacular series of expressions, confusion, disbelief, calculation, and finally a strained attempt at delight. "Husband," she repeated, her voice unnaturally high. "But Sophia never mentioned 3 years next month," Marcus supplied smoothly. "We keep our private life private for security reasons." My father had pushed his way through the onlookers and arrived at my mother's side. His face flushed with either anger or embarrassment, possibly both. "What's the meaning of this?" he demanded, looking from me to Marcus. "Some kind of prank hiring security and an actor to create a scene at your sister's wedding is a new low Sophia." Marcus's expression hardened almost imperceptibly. Only someone who knew him as well as I did would notice the dangerous glint in his eyes. "Mr. Reynolds," he said, his tone deceptively mild. "I'm Marcus Chen, CEO of Chen Security Systems. Your daughter and I have been married for nearly 3 years. My father's mouth opened and closed without sound. Chen Security Systems was a household name, a global security firm worth billions that provided cutting-edge protection systems to governments and corporations worldwide. Even my technology-averse father would recognize it. "That's not possible," he finally managed. "We would have known." "Would you?" Marcus asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. "When have you ever shown interest in Sophia's actual life? From what I've observed today and what she's shared over the years, your interest extends only to criticizing her choices, not understanding them." My sister had appeared now, her white gown making her look like an apparition floating through the stunned guests. Daniel followed in her wake, his expression torn between confusion and fascination. "What's happening?" Jessica demanded. "Who are these people?" "Apparently," my mother said faintly, "your sister has a husband." "That's ridiculous," Jessica scoffed. "She's making it up for attention. On my wedding day." Marcus's arm tightened around my waist, not possessively but supportively. "Mrs. Mitchell, congratulations on your marriage," he said. "I apologize for missing the ceremony. International business obligations kept me in Tokyo until a few hours ago." His impeccable manners made Jessica's rudeness stand out in stark relief. She flushed, looking uncertainly between Marcus, the security team, and the increasingly interested wedding guests. "Is this some kind of joke?" My father found his voice again. "You expect us to believe that our Sophia secretly married a billionaire tech CEO?" supplied one of Bradford's friends from the back, who had apparently Googled Marcus on his phone. "Holy, that's really Marcus Chen Forbes cover last month. Net worth estimated at $12 billion. A collective gasp rippled through the room. My mother swayed slightly, reaching for the back of a chair to steady herself. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Why wouldn't you tell us?" For the first time, her question seemed genuine rather than accusatory. I almost felt sorry for her. "When have you ever wanted to hear about my success, Mother? When have you ever celebrated anything about me?" She had no answer. "As for me," Marcus continued smoothly, "I've been looking forward to meeting the family Sophia has described so vividly. Though I admit, after witnessing your behavior today, I find myself rather—" He paused, selecting his word carefully, "disappointed." My father's face darkened. "Now listen here, young man." "No, Mr. Reynolds," Marcus interrupted, his voice suddenly hard as steel. "You listen. I watched from the terrace as you publicly humiliated your daughter. I saw you push her into that fountain. I heard the things you said to her." The blood drained from my father's face. "Under normal circumstances," Marcus continued, "such an assault would have immediate consequences. My security team was prepared to intervene, but Sophia signaled them to stand down. That's the kind of person your daughter is. Even after your despicable behavior, she didn't want to create a scene at her sister's wedding." The room had gone completely silent. Even the waitstaff had frozen in place. "Fortunately for you," Marcus finished, "my wife is a better person than I am. Because if anyone ever treated her that way again, my response would not be nearly so measured." The threat, though delivered in the most civilized tone possible, hung in the air like storm clouds. At that precise moment, as if choreographed for maximum dramatic effect, the ballroom doors opened once more. 2 individuals in crisp business attire entered their posture, alerting me immediately to their identities, even before I saw their faces. Jason and Olivia, my most trusted team members from the bureau. They approached with purposeful strides, coming to a stop a respectful distance from where Marcus and I stood with my family. "Director Reynolds," Olivia said, formally using my official title. "I apologize for the interruption, but there's a situation requiring your immediate attention." The title hung in the air for a beat before the whispers started. Director, did she say Director Reynolds? What department? My father's confusion was almost comical. Director of what, some minor government office? Yee. Marcus's smile was razor sharp. Your daughter is the youngest Deputy Director of Counterintelligence Operations in FBI history, Mr. Reynolds. Her work has saved countless American lives and earned her the highest security clearance possible. More gasps, more whispers. My mother looked as though she might faint. Jessica stepped forward, her bridal glow diminished by confusion and dawning horror. That's impossible. Sophia is just what, Jessica? I asked quietly. Just your disappointing older sister. Just the family scapegoat. Just the perpetual failure. She had no answer. The Sophia Reynolds I know, Marcus said, his voice carrying easily through the silent room, is brilliant, courageous, and formidable. She has the respect of hardened field agents and government officials alike. She makes decisions daily that affect national security. He turned to look directly at my father. And for some inexplicable reason, she still cared enough about your approval to attend this wedding, despite knowing exactly how you would treat her. My father seemed to have aged 10 years in the last 5 minutes. The confident, bullying attorney had vanished, replaced by a confused old man trying to reconcile his lifelong narrative with this new reality. Why didn't you tell us? He asked, his voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. Would you have believed me? I replied simply. Or would you have found a way to diminish this too? His silence was answer enough. Jason approached, holding a secure tablet. Director, I hate to press, but we need your authorization on this operation. I took the tablet, scanned the information, and made a quick decision. Proceed with option 2, but increase surveillance on the secondary target. I'll call in for the full briefing in 20 minutes. Yes, ma'am, Jason replied, accepting the tablet back. The professional exchange happened in seconds, but its impact on the room was seismic. This wasn't play acting. This wasn't an elaborate ruse. This was real power, real responsibility, and I wielded it with casual confidence. Marcus checked his watch. We should go. The helicopter is waiting, and we have the Tokyo team on standby for the video conference at 9. I nodded, then turned to face my stunned family one last time. Congratulations on your wedding, Jessica. I wish you and Daniel every happiness. My sister seemed incapable of speech. Daniel, to his credit, stepped forward and offered his hand to Marcus. It was an honor to meet you, Mr. Chen, and you, Director Reynolds. I hope we'll have the opportunity to get to know each other better in the future. His sincerity was unexpected and rather touching. I shook his hand warmly. I'd like that, Daniel. My parents remained frozen, decades of their carefully constructed narrative lying in shambles around them. Mr. and Mrs. Reynolds, Marcus said with perfect courtesy, thank you for the invitation. I apologize again for missing the ceremony. My father finally found his voice. Sophia, wait. We need to talk about this. We've always wanted what's best for you. We've always been proud of you. The naked attempt to rewrite history might have worked in the past. Not today. No, Dad, I said gently. You haven't, but that's okay. I don't need you to be proud of me anymore. And with that, Marcus and I turned and walked out of the ballroom, my security team falling into formation around us. Behind us, the whispers had erupted into full-voiced exclamations. The Reynolds family would never be the same, and neither would I. The sleek black helicopter waited on the Fairmont's rooftop helipad, its blades already beginning their lazy rotation. As we approached, flanked by security, I felt a curious lightness. Decades of family baggage seemed to have fallen away, left behind in that ballroom, along with my parents' shattered illusions. Are you okay? Marcus asked, his mouth close to my ear to be heard over the increasing rotor noise. Surprisingly, yes, I replied. Better than okay. Before we could board, Olivia approached with a concerned expression. Director, there's been a development. The ambassador is requesting your presence at the embassy immediately. The surveillance package picked up anomalous signals. I exchanged a look with Marcus. This wasn't part of the evening's script. Real or performance art? I asked quietly. Unfortunately, real, she responded. Jason is already coordinating with the field team, time sensitive. I nodded, switching fully into professional mode. Reroute the helicopter to the embassy. Alert the duty analyst team. I want a full brief upon arrival. Already done, Olivia confirmed. Marcus touched my arm. Go. I'll meet you there. This seamless adjustment to crisis was the rhythm of our marriage. Two high-powered careers occasionally colliding with personal plans. The difference was we supported rather than resented each other's responsibilities. As we turned back toward the roof access door, planning to descend and exit through the hotel's private security entrance, we found our path blocked. My mother stood there slightly breathless from having apparently rushed up several flights of stairs. Her perfect coiffure had wilted slightly, and her immaculate makeup couldn't hide her pallor. "Sophia," she said, her voice unusually uncertain, "you can't just leave like this. We need to talk." I glanced at Olivia, who nodded discreetly and stepped back to give us a moment of privacy. "I have a work emergency, Mother. National security doesn't wait for family reconciliations." "National security," she repeated as if tasting the words for the first time. "You really are what they said. A director at the FBI. Deputy Director of Counterintelligence Operations," I confirmed. "For the past 18 months. Before that, I was assistant director for 3 years. She seemed to be struggling to integrate this information with her long-held image of me. But why the secrecy? Why not tell us? We would have been so proud, I finished for her. Would you? Or would you have found a way to minimize it? Compare it unfavorably to Jessica's achievements. Suggest I got the position through connections rather than merit. Her flinch told me I'd hit the mark. "And the marriage," she pressed. 3 years, he said. 3 years. And you never thought to mention you had married one of the wealthiest men in the country. I noticed her emphasis on Marcus's wealth rather than any of his other remarkable qualities. Even now, status was her primary concern. "Our marriage is private for multiple reasons," I explained patiently. "Marcus's position makes him a potential target. My position involves classified work, and frankly, I wanted something in my life that wasn't subject to the Reynolds family critique." The helicopter pilot signaled that we needed to depart. Time was running short. "I have to go," I said. "There's a legitimate national security situation developing." "Will you come back?" she asked. And for the first time in my adult life, I heard genuine uncertainty in her voice. To let us get to know you." The question surprised me. I studied her face looking for the manipulative mother I'd known all my life. Instead, I saw confusion, hurt, and perhaps a dawning realization of all she'd missed. "I don't know," I answered honestly. "That depends on whether you're interested in knowing the real me or just the successful version that now meets with your approval." She had no immediate response to that. "Think about it," I suggested. "Really think about whether you want a relationship based on who I actually am, rather than who you always wished I would be." I turned to go, but her voice stopped me once more. "Your father would never admit it," she said quietly. "But he was wrong today. What he did was unforgivable." It wasn't quite an apology, but it was more acknowledgement than I'd ever received. "Thank you for saying that," I replied. "I need to go." As Marcus and I boarded the helicopter, I glanced back to see my mother still standing there, a diminished figure against the vastness of the Boston skyline. For the first time, I saw her not as the intimidating matriarch of my childhood, but as a woman who had constructed her entire identity around appearances and social standing, and who was now facing the collapse of her carefully maintained illusions. I felt an unexpected pang of something like compassion. The embassy situation turned out to be legitimate, but manageable encrypted communications, suggesting a potential security breach that my team efficiently contained within 2 hours. By 11 p.m., Marcus and I were finally alone in our penthouse overlooking the Charles River. "Some wedding," he remarked, loosening his tie as we stood on the terrace. The city lights reflected off the water, creating a tapestry of glimmering patterns. "Not quite how I planned to introduce you to the family," I admitted, slipping off my shoes. "I thought it went rather well, actually," he said with a slight smile. "The look on your father's face when Olivia called you director was worth the price of admission." I laughed despite myself. That was rather satisfying. "Your mother followed you to the roof," he noted. "That seems significant." "I'm not sure what it means yet," I said honestly. 32 years of patterns don't change in an afternoon. "No," he agreed. "But revelations can sometimes create openings for change." He pulled me gently into his arms. "Whatever you decide about your family, I'm with you. If you want to explore reconciliation, I'll support that. If you want to maintain distance, I'll support that too." This was what real love felt like. Not the conditional approval I'd sought from my family for decades, but unconditional support regardless of my choices. 3 weeks after my sister's wedding, Marcus and I sat in our favorite corner of Thinking Cup Cafe on Newbury Street. Despite our combined net worth and status, we enjoyed these small moments of normality, good coffee, quiet conversation, and people watching in a place where we weren't immediately recognized. "Your mother called again yesterday," Marcus mentioned, stirring his Americano. "That's the 3rd time this week." I nodded, watching pedestrians hurry past the window. The Boston fall had painted the trees along Commonwealth Avenue in brilliant reds and golds. She left another voicemail, invited us to Sunday dinner. "Are you considering it?" His tone was neutral, offering neither encouragement nor discouragement. "I'm not sure," I admitted. "Part of me thinks it's just damage control. The Reynolds family image took quite a hit when word got around about what happened at the wedding." The story had indeed circulated rapidly through Boston's upper social circles. My father's law firm partners had expressed concern about his judgment. My mother had been quietly removed from the chairperson position of her beloved charity board. Apparently publicly humiliating your FBI director daughter and alienating your billionaire son-in-law was bad for business and social standing. "And the other part," Marcus prompted. I sighed, tracing the rim of my mug. "The other part wonders if this might be the first genuine interest they've ever shown in knowing me. The real me, not their projection." The weeks following the wedding had brought an avalanche of family communication emails, texts, calls, even handwritten letters. My father's alternated between defensive justifications and awkward attempts at reconciliation. My mother's were more directly apologetic, though still threaded with hints that I should have told them about my important position sooner. Jessica had sent a single text from her honeymoon: "We need to talk when I'm back." Nothing more. The most surprising development had been my growing friendship with Rachel Daniels' step-cousin. True to her word, we'd met for drinks where she'd confessed to always feeling like an outsider in the Mitchell family, a sentiment I understood all too well. Her genuine interest in my work, what I could share of it, and her complete lack of agenda was refreshing. "I've been thinking about something Dr. Chin said in therapy last week," I told Marcus, referring to the counselor I'd started seeing to process my family dynamics, about how setting boundaries isn't about punishing others but protecting yourself. Marcus nodded. "I like that distinction. I think I can have some form of relationship with my family." I continued working through my thoughts aloud. "But it needs to be on new terms. No more diminishing, no more comparisons, no more accepting disrespect to keep the peace." "That sounds healthy," Marcus agreed. "And if they can't meet those terms, then I continue building my life with the people who can," I said simply. "You, my friends, my colleagues, the family I've chosen." My phone buzzed with an incoming call. Jason, my second-in-command at the bureau. I answered immediately. "We've got movement on the Richardson case," he said without preamble. "Surveillance picked up a meeting at the specified location. Team is in position." "I'll be there in 20 minutes," I replied, already gathering my things. Marcus was doing the same, accustomed to our interruptions. "Need a ride?" he asked as we stepped onto the busy sidewalk. "My meeting at MIT isn't for another hour." "Thanks, but I've got the bureau car today." I nodded toward the black SUV parked discreetly down the block where my security detail waited. He kissed me goodbye, and we headed in opposite directions, him toward his innovative tech empire, me toward the delicate work of protecting national security, each supporting the other's mission without resentment or competition. That evening, after a successful operation that resulted in the capture of a significant counterintelligence target, I made a decision. I called my mother. "Sunday dinner," I said when she answered. "Marcus and I will come, but we need to establish some ground rules first." Her immediate agreement was telling. The old Eleanor Reynolds would have bristled at conditions. This new version, humbled by revelations and consequences, was at least willing to listen. The dinner itself was predictably awkward. My father vacillated between defensive posturing and attempts at showing interest in my career. My mother tried too hard, nervously over-explaining the provenance of every dish as if hosting foreign dignitaries. Jessica and Daniel arrived late. Their dynamic was interesting to observe. He seemed genuinely pleased to see Marcus and me, while she maintained a careful distance, still processing her displacement from the family spotlight. But there were moments, brief tentative moments, of something like genuine connection. My father asked thoughtful questions about a recent cybersecurity initiative Marcus's company had implemented for government agencies. My mother produced a box of my childhood achievements she'd apparently kept all these years: debate trophies, academic awards, science competition medals, evidence that perhaps she'd noticed more than she'd acknowledged. Most surprising was Jessica's request to speak privately after dinner. In the garden where we'd played as children, my sister struggled visibly with words that didn't come easily to her. "I didn't know," she said finally, "about your job, your husband, your life." "You never asked," I pointed out not unkindly. "I know." She twisted her wedding ring nervously. I think I liked being the favorite. It was easier not to question it." Her honesty was unexpected. "Daniel says I need to examine why I felt threatened by your success," she continued. "Even before I knew about all this." She gestured vaguely, encompassing my career, marriage, and status. "He thinks we could both benefit from family therapy." I studied my sister, really looked at her, perhaps for the first time in years. Behind the perfect exterior, I glimpsed uncertainty, insecurity even. The golden child role came with its own burdens, its own impossible expectations. "I'd consider that," I said carefully. "Not immediately, but eventually." It wasn't forgiveness exactly, but it was an opening. A small crack in the fortress walls I'd built around my heart where family was concerned. The months that followed brought slow, imperfect progress. Weekly family dinners gradually became less strained. My parents learned to respect the boundaries I established. My father attended anger management therapy, reluctantly at first, then with growing self-awareness. My mother and I began tentative mother-daughter outings that sometimes ended in tension, sometimes in genuine laughter. Healing wasn't linear. There were setbacks, moments when old patterns reasserted themselves, when my father's temper flared or my mother's criticism surfaced. But there was also accountability that had never existed before, a willingness to acknowledge harm and attempt repair. The most profound change, however, wasn't in my family but in myself. I no longer measured my worth by their approval. I no longer diminished my achievements to make others comfortable. I no longer accepted disrespect as the price of belonging. One particularly meaningful moment came 3 months after the wedding. I had invited my parents to a small ceremony where I received a commendation for leading a complex counterintelligence operation. It was the first time they had been permitted into this part of my world after thorough background checks and security clearances. I watched my father's face as the FBI director praised my work, detailing in appropriately vague terms how my team had neutralized a significant threat to national security. There was something new in his expression, not pride exactly, more like genuine astonishment, as if he were seeing me clearly for the first time. Afterward, as we stood at the reception, my father cleared his throat awkwardly. "I never understood," he said, the words seeming difficult for him. "All those years I thought you were less. I was wrong." It wasn't a full apology, but from William Reynolds it was seismic. "Thank you for saying that," I replied. "I wish I had known," he continued. "I wish I had seen." "You could have asked," I said simply. "At any point you could have asked about my life, my work, my dreams. You never did." He nodded, the painful truth of it settling between us. My relationship with Jessica evolved too. Our childhood rivalry slowly transformed into something resembling mutual respect. We would never be best friends, too much history, too many ingrained patterns, but we found common ground in unexpected places. She had genuine talent as an arts administrator, and when she asked for my help structuring the security protocols for a major museum exhibition, I was happy to provide guidance. "How do you and Marcus make it work?" she asked one afternoon over coffee. "Your careers, I mean. You're both so busy, so successful in your own fields." "We make each other priorities," I said. "Not obligations, not afterthoughts, but genuine priorities. We protect our time together, but we also respect each other's work." She was silent for a moment, stirring her latte. "Daniel and I struggle with that. He expects me to be available whenever his schedule allows, but when I need him to adjust for my exhibition openings or board meetings. Have you told him how that makes you feel?" "I'm not very good at difficult conversations," she admitted with a self-deprecating smile. "I tend to either avoid or explode." "That sounds familiar," I said, thinking of our parents. "Maybe the family therapy idea has merit." Jessica nodded slowly. "Maybe it does." 1 year after the infamous wedding, Marcus and I hosted a gathering at our home. Not just immediate family, but the people who had formed my support system throughout the years. My FBI colleagues, Marcus's sister and her family friends who had stood by me, Rachel and her new boyfriend, even a few extended family members who had reached out with genuine interest and connection. As I looked around at this diverse group, this chosen family interspersed with biological relations, I realized something profound. Family isn't just about shared DNA. It's about who shows up, who sees you clearly and loves you anyway, who celebrates your successes without jealousy and supports you through failures without judgment. Sometimes those people share your bloodline. Often they don't. The magic happens when you stop forcing connections where they don't naturally exist and instead nurture the ones that bring mutual joy and growth. Standing in our kitchen preparing to bring out dessert, I felt Marcus's arms encircle me from behind. "Happy?" he asked simply. I leaned into his embrace, watching through the doorway as my father engaged in animated conversation with Jason about fishing techniques, while my mother showed Rachel photos on her phone and Jessica's musical laugh rang out at something Daniel had said. Not perfect, still complicated, but real in a way it had never been before. "Yes," I answered truthfully. "I am." A week later, I received an unexpected package at my office. Inside was an old, worn teddy bear I hadn't seen in decades, my childhood companion Mr. Whiskers, who had mysteriously disappeared when I was 12. There was a note in my mother's elegant handwriting. "I found him in the attic. I took him from you after you brought home that science award thinking you were too old for such things and needed to grow up. It was cruel and unnecessary. I see that now. He's been waiting for you. So have I. Love, Mom." It wasn't a grand gesture. It didn't erase decades of hurt. But it was an acknowledgement, a small step toward healing. That evening, I placed Mr. Whiskers on a shelf in our home office next to my FBI commendations, and a photo of Marcus and me on our wedding day, a visual representation of the person I had become, all the pieces finally allowed to exist together. My phone pinged with a text from Jessica. "Dad actually went to his anger management session without Mom reminding him. First time ever. Progress." I smiled as I typed back, "Definite progress." She replied quickly, "Therapy is helping me too. Learning a lot about why I needed to be the perfect one. Not easy, but necessary." Another ping, this time from Rachel. "Dinner this weekend found a Vietnamese place that will blow your mind." And finally a message from Marcus. "Home in 20. Bringing that wine you liked. Love you." I looked around our home thinking about the complex, beautiful life we had built together. A life that now cautiously but genuinely included versions of my family I had never thought possible, imperfect, evolving, trying. If you're watching this and have struggled with toxic family dynamics, I want you to know that your worth isn't determined by those who failed to see it. Building boundaries isn't selfish, it's necessary for healing. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to create distance until genuine change occurs. The journey isn't about forgetting or pretending the pain never existed. It's about deciding what kind of relationship is possible now with the people they are today, not the ones you wish they would be. It's about protecting your peace while remaining open to authentic connection. Most importantly, it's about recognizing that family is ultimately about choice. Those who choose to see you, hear you, and love you as you are. Those who earn a place in your heart through their actions, not merely their relation. And if reconciliation isn't possible or healthy with your biological family, know this: you can create your own constellation of love and support. You can build a chosen family that fulfills the promise of what family should be. The water in that fountain was cold, but it washed away something I had carried for too long, the desperate need for approval from people who weren't capable of giving it. Standing up for myself that day wasn't just about confronting them. It was about finally embracing myself. And that more than any career achievement or relationship status is the real happy ending to this story.